It's one of the biggest. I don't think it's on 10. So you can see like it cannot. Calcium is involved in several steps in the cascade, including activation of the platelets themselves. So without calcium, you can't even start the clotting process. Fibrogen. Now, I want you to be mindful. What are the things you look at on lab values to tell you if a person is clotting okay or whatever?
INR, PT, PTT.
Her P, PTT, did you guys think of that?
INR.
Very good. Would it also be fibrogen?
Yes.
Be careful, because you may see this again, and it is not. Because to be honest with you, I took the test, I kind of got one of the answers wrong. And when I looked it up, I was wrong.
So it's not fibrogen?
It is not fibrogen. Are you running out of tongue? No, okay, she just started thinking.
Oh, she's scared, you know?
Yeah, I was like, dang, I gotta really speed up here. Thought I was doing Google time. This is not Jerry scared me. So, the important calcium level regulators, vitamin D, parathyroid hormone. Why are these important? This is just for knowledge. You can't, so where do you get calcium from? You either eat it or you eat it. There's no other way to get calcium. You get calcium, you can store it. Your kidneys can kind of regulate it. You can keep bringing back more in or you can let it go out. But vitamin D, parathyroid hormone, this right here produces something that creates that thing that destroys the bone. Okay, so it actually produces that thing. Hmm?
Something black.
Yeah, it is.
I can't remember what it's called, but I know it ends in blastin.
It does. It's
Osteoblastin.
I think it's osteoblastin. Yeah. But it produces that stuff that kind of tears up the bone. So if you need more calcium and stuff in the bone, that can activate to release it from the bones and start the restructuring. And we'll talk about more of that when we get to the phosphorus. I got some interesting pictures for you. But it can't be absorbed without this. Vitamin D, it has to have vitamin D in order to be absorbed, or it can't be. And it also can't be absorbed without that. Calcitonin, phosphates. Calcitonin is some of the lab value we look at for disease processes, and those can reduce it. Why would phosphate reduce calcium? Okay. You don't really need to know, but you know, remember I told you, whenever you tear a bone, it releases phosphate and calcium so that you have more in the blood. Well, with the restructuring, if you have a lot of phosphate, it'll start restructuring a lot of that. So to restructure the bone, you need a lot more calcium. That's how that is. And serum calcium is bound to albumin. If you look here, reduction in calcium of 0.8 milligrams per deciliter for every gram of deciliter of albumin. There is a lot of calcium bound to albumin. That's how it travels around the body, honestly. It doesn't just, because if it travels without it being attached, it's called ionized calcium. So they'll have two different ones. They have serum calcium and ionized calcium. Okay. So ionized calcium is not bound, serum calcium is bound. Or it's all of it. So it'll be, you have to subtract the two to get either way. But 40 to 45% of the circulating calcium is bound to albumin. Albumin is a protein that carries calcium in the blood. So it's almost like a little car that carries around. And it's apparently a complex process. It's not simple, but it happens a lot.
So could calcium play a role, like, you know, when someone, we're talking about the anion gap, so
Mhm.
they have a below 8, would that be affected with like calcium?
Well, the calcium, in this case, the calcium is affected by the albumin, not the other way.
I'm not gonna be around.
Yeah, the albumin's gonna do what albumin's gonna do.
Oh, okay.
But if there's not much albumin, then that will affect the calcium.
Okay.
Good question. Good thinking. So, normal adults, serum calcium is 0.8, and the ionized levels are normally 2.5 to 2.7. Did I say 0.8? I mean 8.6. So you can see it's almost like half, it's like a fourth of it. That's how much of it's bound to albumin. And the ionized calcium is the calcium that's free floating around, not attached to anything. And when you look on lab values, you're gonna see where they have ionized calcium and they have calcium. They're gonna have both on there. And that's just telling you what I already told you. The difference between ionized calcium and serum calcium. Serum calcium.
We have to know all these normals?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not gonna ask normals for all of them,
Yeah.
but you need to know the normals, and You need to know if they're higher or low, possible side effects.
Okay.
There's like a question or two about that. Yeah.
Why are the total serum levels and the ionized levels measured differently?
Actually, I could answer that yesterday, I forgot.
Is
You
it
gotta
because
quit
some of-
asking these
is it
questions.
Because some of the free floating ones can go in between the cells while the others cannot.
I know that it's carried around by albumin, that's how it gets around, the ionized calcium. I can't remember why they separate it. But I know if the ionized calcium is it me jiggling or this?
It's that, it's always.
Okay, good. But that's something I have to look up again, or if you wanna Google it, I can't remember. I'll write it down, cause I need to make sure I remember to look that up. Dadgummit, no, that's two things now. No, I like it, keep it coming. So we're going to hypocalcemia. And to be honest with you, the only way that really, you get hypocalcemia is if you don't eat more calcium. Okay? That's one of the big ways. You have a decreased absorption, or you don't get it from the bones like you're supposed to, from the breakdown of the bones. Malnutrition, parathyroid hormone activity. Remember, that's what releases that substance to tear down bones. So if you're not tearing down bones to get your calcium, bless you. If you're not tearing down bones to get your calcium, you're not gonna get more calcium. It's just gonna stay stored in the bones instead of useful. Vitamin D. Without vitamin D, you can't really absorb it. You need vitamin D to absorb it. It plays a big role in that. Certain drugs, and renal dysfunction. Renal dysfunction is true for all these things. If you see it on the test, this is what's possible, it's always renal. Renal deals with the balance of all these electrolytes, all of them. Pancreatitis, massive blood transfusions, tumors. Low calcium is frequently consistent with low magnesium levels, especially malnutrition, whatever alcoholics. Alcohol actually affects a lot of the electrolytes. It can really put a disarray of many electrolytes. And at the end of the day, the true reason why that happens, they don't know. They just know that it does happen. Alcohol is associated with cardiac dysrhythmias, it's associated with this. They know it happens. Why does it happen precisely? We got some ideas, but they don't know. Hypocalcemia features perioral, so you can feel numbness and tingling here, and then it can spread, progressing to tetanus. Okay. Hypocalcemia physical, so protein, energy malnutrition, had your parathyroid removed, lysis, tumor lysis. Anybody know what lysis means? It's a destruction, or like if you lysis a cell, it ruptures. Hypercalcemia increases, and that could be due from, but some of the features you may see would be anorexia. I could use a little bit of that. Vomiting, polyuria, mental confusion, death, obtunded. EKG would show a shortened QT interval. Okay. Because remember, the threshold, potential potassium, but where the actual threshold is set by calcium. Okay. And that's why it would be shortened, because if you have a lot of calcium in there, then the threshold is going to be easily reached. It's just going to shoot real quick. Causes for hypercalcemia. Some of it can be myeloma, cancer related. Increased absorption, usually vitamin D. So if you get a lot of vitamin D, that can certainly cause hypercalcemia. Because if you have a lot of vitamin D, you're going to absorb a lot of calcium. Sarcoidosis, prolonged bed rest. I thought that was interesting. And Paget's disease. I've seen one Paget disease in 31 years. That has to do with phosphorus and calcium. But these either make you absorb more calcium, or in some cases, make you tear down more bone muscle. Or not bone muscle, mouse skin, right, or tear down more. So the only way you can really get calcium is one, you eat it, it gets absorbed. If you have too much vitamin or parathyroid hormone, you can absorb too much of it. And the other is if you have too much the thyroid hormone or vitamin or phosphate, you can end up building or tearing down too many structures and get too much calcium that way. So all these kind of work that way. It's just good for knowledge. Magnesium is another major cation present in the serum besides calcium.